Well, Razorback fans, spring practice. Got to see a little bit of it, got to witness it, got to enjoy it. So let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Neighbors. I am also the host of the John Neighbors Show, which you can catch every weekday afternoon from 4 to 6 on Natty State Sports and nattystatesports.com. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. We're new customers. You can join today. You'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Friday. We're about to the weekend and got a lot of things, actually, going on when it comes to Razorback athletics and basketball. At least the home finale happened. They beat LSU. That was great. Baseball's coming up this weekend. But I wanted to talk football because that's what you want to hear about, right? You're over the basketball team. I think the best way to put it is, honestly, at this point, the baseball team is exciting. The football team is exciting. Basketball team is more of a mystery. But as I see it with football and being able to go to spring practice, it was quite enlightening. It was quite of a cool experience for a lot of different reasons. So we're going to dive into those, and we're going to go through some of the stuff that I saw that I liked and what really stood out to me just in the very first practice of spring. A lot more practices we're going to be able to watch. In fact, at the time you're watching this podcast or listening to this podcast, you'll probably be wondering, okay, well, what's going on today? Well, because Friday there's another practice, so we'll have a more of a recap on that later. But still, plenty of things to talk about. And what I first want to dive into is simply the quarterback. It's the most important position on the field, especially in college football. There's a lot of interest and intrigue there because you do have some players that are returning from last year's team at the quarterback position. You got a couple transfers. You got a true freshman. You got a former baseball player. You got a lot of newness, but also mystique surrounding the quarterback position. And there's a lot to be said about it, and we'll talk about the offense specifically with Petrino and some other things that stood out to me. But when I was out there, I truly just was paying attention mostly to the quarterbacks and to Bobby Petrino and the offense. Because, to me, defense, no matter what, there's still going to be a lot of question marks. Linebacker position, secondary looks good, defensive line. There's some pieces there, but the offense is really where my interest is at. And with the quarterback position, I've been thinking this entire time leading into spring practice, it's going to be an open competition at quarterback. We don't know who it's going to be. It's truly an open competition. Maybe the first time Arkansas has had an open quarterback competition since the Mitch Mustaine, Robert Johnson era or whatever, Casey Dick. It's going to be intriguing. We'll see how it all plays out, but there's a lot of high-quality quarterbacks that could take the reins and be the guy. Folks, that's over. That's over with. Taylen Green's the quarterback. Taylen Green is your QB1. And no, I don't need any more than just one practice to see it. Some of you are yelling at me and getting in the comments and talking about how stupid I am and how horrible I am. But I'm looking at this logically, and I'm looking at it from a gut instinct and a gut feeling. I watched that practice. I watched those quarterbacks, and I watched that offense. And what I saw from Taylen Green was nothing short of an understanding. We know about his gifts as far as physicality goes. He's very athletic. He's tall. He can throw the deep ball really well. He's got a lot of strength there. He's got experience. Now, we can look back on all those things and put it together and be like, here's why he's going to do it. But what I saw from Taylen Green in the comfort level that he had of just a simple, calling plays, audibles, checkdowns, hitting the slants, hitting the deep ball, knowing when to run and when not to run. All of those things in practice, in the very first practice, I didn't see a single thing where I'm like, that was a bad decision. There's an understanding there. I think that Taylen Green was brought in by Bobby Petrino not simply because of his possibilities, not because of what he could become, his potential, things like that. He wasn't brought in for that. He was brought in because that's the guy that Petrino wanted. And I've always felt like that, but I needed some more evidence. I needed to know for sure. Well, I know for sure he's the guy. And that's not a slight against any of the other quarterbacks on the roster. That's not a slap in the face. That's more of just an understanding, going back to it. I know what Bobby Petrino looks for in quarterbacks. I'm not an expert in the field. I don't sit here and say, I do scout team and all that. But for somebody like me who has been a huge Bobby Petrino fan since the beginning of time and cannot get enough of him as a play caller and as an offensive mind, there's certain things that you see in the offenses, no matter if it was at Louisville or Arkansas or at Auburn or wherever, Missouri State, even a little bit of Texas A&M, there's a footprint there. You see the foundation, you see some stuff, and you're like, oh, yeah, that's a Petrino offense. And when it comes to the quarterback position, there's always a certain demeanor that they have. There's always a certain way they carry themselves. It's a confidence level, sure. There's a little bit of a swagger to it, sure. There's a little bit of the physical side of things, the tall quarterbacks, all that. Like, sure, all of that is true. But when I see a guy that just looks so comfortable in the backfield, taking every snap, doing it in a smooth, easy way, not having to stop practice, not being confused, not being yelled at and talked to a certain way, and running with the ones from the get-go and looking like the first-string quarterback, looking like QB1 from the get-go, I've seen all I need to see. He's the guy. But it's because of that element. I don't think that it's just Taylen Green athletically or skill-wise is just significantly better than Jacoby Criswell or Malachi Singleton or anything like that. I'm not looking at it from that perspective. I'm looking at it of just how far along are these quarterbacks and where are they at? How far along is a guy like Taylen Green compared to these other quarterbacks? Because you have a new OC, there's changes, there's verbiage that ends up going different directions and a lot of a learning curve, but anybody who watched that practice, who watched that scrimmage, who saw all of that, you know he's the guy. And that's not a bad thing. That's a great thing. Because if you can sit there and you can tell me that in the beginning part of spring practice and practice one, with new quarterbacks, new offense, new scheme, new coaches, new coordinator, all of those things, if you can tell me that you saw somebody who ran the offense with the first teamers out there and ran it with ease and ran it with confidence and ran it in a way that made you say, man, that looks like it could really work. That's not a bad thing. Don't ever let it be where you expected a certain quarterback or you wanted a certain quarterback to play. If he doesn't play, don't be resentful enough to be like, that's a bad decision. That's bad. That's dumb. The best quarterback needs to play. No matter the team, no matter the situation, the best quarterback, the best player always needs to play. I trust Bobby Petrino, and Taylen Green's the guy. Simple as that. But enjoy that. Embrace that. It's not a bad thing. Live it up. And hope for the best. I don't know how good Taylen Green's going to be overall. But I do know he's going to give me some excitement watching how he can do a lot of different things with arms, legs, and the ability to throw the ball deep downfield. There's a lot of reasons to be excited about it. I'm going to talk about Petrino. Got to see a little firsthand of him and some of the things I expected but didn't expect here in just a second. Folks, passion, drive, and patience. It's what brings home the winning trophy, but it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts that you need and all the prices that you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, continuing on with the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. We've been talking about the quarterback situation and with the offense and how it's going on, but I told you that I really observed not only the quarterbacks, but Bobby Petrino. That's where my focus was, because that's really what I cared about the most. Seeing how he returns to Arkansas, not as a head coach, but as an offense coordinator and quarterbacks coach. How does he handle it? What's the differences? Does he seem different? Does the team respond a certain way? Does it look a lot like it once was? Well, at least in practice one, here's my assessment of Bobby Petrino and the job that he did, but also maybe some things that I expected or didn't expect. Number one, it's great to see him in Razorback gear again. I know he's not the head coach, but still walking around, still even running around. He did a little jogging. Seeing him in that position and in that apparel is like, yeah, it's hitting now. That was 12 years ago. Isn't it crazy to think about? That was 12, 13 years ago when that happened. So that's first and foremost the most important thing. But also, he's not as fired up as maybe he once was. Now, jokingly, I say that's a bad thing. I don't really think it's a bad thing. It's just different. But, hey, people get older. Coaches get older. And someone like Petrino, if you think back to when he was here at Arkansas and how things changed for him in just that short 4.5, 5-year span, and then thinking about where he's at now, it makes a lot of sense. What happened with his family? For one, of course, the motorcycle accident and all that. But throw into the mix, too, of he having his children give him grandchildren. Those daughters get married. And having those types of grandkids around and coupling that with old age and coupling that with the humility that he had of having to, lose his jobs and get embarrassed in the way he did. All those things like coupled together. It makes sense of why he might be a little bit more mellow, a little bit more low-key. And that's fine. I still think he can get the job done. He doesn't have to be a dude who's just ripping everybody a new you-know-what, because there's plenty of elements to his game and to his ability as an offensive mind to get this team and to get this offense to that point without having to rip them. It's more of like I just wanted to see, for nostalgic's sake, that part of it. So he might be a little bit more mellow. He might be a little bit older. But what I got to see in just those few drills, those few elements of 7-on-7 that we got to witness, didn't get to film them, but we got to witness it. It hit me, man. It hit me right in my feels. The nostalgic feeling that just overwhelmed me was real. Because if you saw those slants that they were running as an offense, if you saw those down the field deep plays, if you saw the play action bootlegs, making throws on the run, out to the H-back, finding the tight end. I'm not saying it's exactly the way it was in 2010, 2011, but man, it gets me, man. It gets me right here because there are so many similarities. And it's so effective, and that's what's crazy about it. College football is an ever-changing game. We know that. I mean, 3 years ago compared to now, it's not even the same sport. But over time, the game itself has changed, and the development of offenses and how they approached, whether it was the spread, hurry up, no huddle, triple option, wing T. Each and every decade, it seems like there's a new wave of offense and a new wave of things done. Some of it stays, and some of it comes and goes. But the thing about the offense that Petrino runs, it's varied. It's had some adjustments and some changes. But the fact that it's able to continue to be that and to still be seen as that, but to still be effective and still be successful, to me, that's what's mind-blowing but also exciting. It's the execution, it's the details, it's the small little minor things. It's the amount of steps you take on a route. It's the amount of speed that you take the snap with and the selling point of handing it off and then pulling it back. It's the quick release of the throw. It's just the small details that make the difference. The play calling, the formations are not insane. They're not just something that's so new and fresh and you've never seen them before. Even the plays themselves aren't necessarily overly unique. They're plays that have been in the NCAA football video game from EA Sports Playbook for a while. There's nothing over the top, ridiculously unique about it. But what stands out is that the details make the difference in the success. Anybody could run these formations. You could watch these plays over and over again as a coach and be like, oh, yeah, there we go. But it's the details, the small things. Where 11 players, as difficult as it sounds, all 11 players, if they just execute the small little things, the play is going to be successful. And throwing in the timing of the play calling too. But I don't think Petrino's changed all that much. He may have gotten older, may have gotten mellow out, may have been more chill. But his offense is still there, baby. And it still looks really good. Really excited about Amazon Fire TV being a part of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Fire TV is your destination for sports. From live games to highlights to in-depth analysis, Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV, created recently, Fire TV channels still deliver a constant supply of latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues, college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, NBA, MLB, and lots more, not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. They got it all. So check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. And if you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Another thing, too, my final thing, which again is just one practice. I know it's not the hugest, biggest deal of all time, but I just thought it was fascinating to look at. You had a lot of size out there in the skill positions for Arkansas's offense. Doesn't always equate to a high level of success, but I started looking at the wide receivers. You returned all the wide receivers from last year, and they're all big guys. Like Andrew Armstrong's a big guy. Tyrone Broden's a big guy. Isaac Tesla's a big guy. You got a lot of size there. Okay, that's great. But at tight end, what about that? Well, Luke Hasz is looking good. Luke Hasz is a Mackey Award-winning caliber player. Not saying he's going to win it this year, but it wouldn't surprise me if he did. He is that good. And he's a good-sized guy, too. What about the running backs, though? You have a lot of new faces. You lost Rocket Sanders. You lost A.J. Green. So what do you got? Well, you got Rashad Dubinion, a little bit of a smaller guy, but still experienced running back. And the rest of them, how about Dominic Johnson? Yeah, he still plays. Still big dude. Still look pretty good today. How about the true freshman Braylon Russell from Benton? My man over here, 6'1", 252 pounds. That's a lot of dude. And he looked the part. They're trying to slim him down, but that's a big old running back. Transfer from Utah. Big old dude. He's like 6'3", 235. Big dude. So the point is like, just because you're big in the skill position doesn't mean you're successful. But we know that Bobby Petrino has always been about having big, able-bodied athletes out there in the skill position spots. Not all the time, but most of the time it was always really helpful, especially at running back. But I started thinking about Taylon Green being 6'6", your main wide receivers all being 6'4" or above, all your running backs being like 6'2", or at least 230 pounds or above. Sometimes size does not matter, but for skill position guys for Arkansas on this offense, yeah, I'd say it matters just a little bit. Appreciate everybody listening in and watching into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at The John Neighbors Show for any questions, comments, concerns you may have, and we'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.